All right, how's it going, everybody? Welcome. Hope it's cool where you guys are here in Detroit. It is a blazing hot day. Let me know where you guys are tuning in from. If anybody's been on tour, how the shows are going. I had a busy weekend of gigging, so I missed the streams. I couldn't go to the shows because I was playing. So let me know how everything was sounding. I caught a little bit on YouTube. But would be good to hear from you guys. Hey, what's up, Fishy Fish? We got a doozy tonight. So we had a request from Scott. Thank you, Scott, so much for suggesting a Possum. And I had it down as a 93 Possum, and I can't remember how I came to that. I guess I picked that. But basically, Scott wanted to know, you know, what is Trey doing here in this? It's basically a blues progression, but it doesn't sound like a oh, right on, NorCal, it's nice up there, right on. Well, it is blazing over here, so I'm in the cool basement. At any rate, with Possum, Scott's question was basically like, what is Trey doing here where you know, it's basically a blues, but it sounds like there's more going on. There sounds like there's some other stuff going on, and you would be correct, Scott. There is some other stuff. So I think what I'm going to do here is kind of scan through the jam and explain some stuff as it goes on, and you know, obviously chime in if you guys want to, you know, make any comments or you know, any questions as they pop up. Definitely don't hesitate. That really helps me gauge where you guys are at and what you guys need. I do have 3 choice licks that I transcribed, not subscribed. Although please do subscribe if you aren't already. So I've got 3 licks ready to go. I've got it tabbed out. There's a link in the for a worksheet in the description. What else? Thanks to Rip for making a jam track for this. So if you go over, there's a link in the description as well for playing with the band. He's got one ready to go for you guys. He took Trey's guitar out so you can take some of the stuff maybe we get into here tonight and apply it to your own playing, which is super cool. So thank you, Rip, as always, for doing that. Let's see here. I got a couple notes. I always have to try to remember stuff. Yeah, so get the worksheet, get the jam track from Rip, and let's get into it here. So why don't I just kind of talk you through what's going on with the chords in case you haven't played Possum. It pretty much does the same thing the whole time, and it may help us kind of put things into context. So let me go close up real quick. We'll get to the jam in a second, but basically, you know, we've got the main riff going on here. Whoop, let me turn off my tuner. Sometimes Trey will kind of stay in the first 2 positions there. So he's kind of like an E7 with a little hammer on. And then he comes up here. Basically, I usually think of that as, you know, just an E7 over D. And then this is kind of like an A over E. So we got that main riff going on. And then we go to A7. Trey will do some stuff up here, and a lot of times he'll do little dyads. More on that later as we get into the jam, but just kind of keeping the chords moving. And then it goes B, G, A, and then we're back. Sorry guys, the camera is getting a little funny here. Let me get this light out of there. This is like seeing the mind of God. You must stop. Right on, man. Yeah, Trey. The thing is, when we kind of peek under the hood, it's pretty cool to try to even start to, approximate what on earth he is thinking with the stuff he comes up with. So hopefully this stuff helps. But at any rate, you've got a basic kind of blues form. The ending is a little different than a typical blues. We go to B and then a G to A. Now, one thing that will come up a couple times here is how Trey takes some classic blues turnarounds and he kind of varies them. So right before we get into the jam, let me do that. A couple turnarounds that he's playing with here. There's a classic one, like if you go to the 4th fret of G, that kind of thing. He's going to do a variation of that. So I'm just taking, basically think of that like the 5th and the 3rd from an E chord. And then we come on down here. Now this, gosh, how do I think of that? That's almost like a substitute for a 2 chord. I think of that like an F sharp 7, flat 9, and then you can think of that as like some kind of a B7 and back. So he does a variation on that. And there's going to be a lot of stuff like that. So I'm going to get into specifics later. Another bluesy kind of turnaround that he does is one it's kind of a descending pattern where it'll be like, that sort of thing. Yeah, doing 6th intervals for sure. Yeah, if you're talking about these. Yeah, it's interesting because I'm glad I'm looking at the comments here. Fishy Fish is talking about how that's a 6th. But things are really interesting when we get into intervals because while that's true, everything is relative in a way. So it's like, if you look at the note B, that is, the G sharp is the 6th of that, but then it's like, well, this is the 5th of the chord being played and the 3rd of the chord being played. So it's kind of like we have to know things upside and down and backwards and all over the place. So the 2 turnarounds like that, and then that kind of thing. So more on that later. But let's pull up the jam. And I've got it queued up in the slowdowner in case we want to, loop anything or slow it down. So let me get that going here. I've got it queued up, as you can see, in the jam. And I'm going to let it play. The first phrase that I transcribed is going to be in the first little bit here. So I'm going to stop it, and we'll do a little stop and go. But here it is when it first kicks on. This is from New Year's Eve, 1993. Okay, and I want to actually I want to pop back on here. I want to say one thing, and guys, let me know if somebody could comment on this. Last week I was playing videos throughout the stream, but I didn't realize you guys couldn't hear me talk during the video playing. Just something with the software I'm using. So let me know if there's a long pause or anything. That's me talking when the slowdowner's on. But anyway, that first little clip, to Scott's original question of why he wanted me to cover this one, you can hear that there's some crazy stuff going on. The very first stuff that he gets into is very strange and unusual, especially if we think of this as a blues. So let me play that one more time, and I'm gonna break it down a little bit, but it's just very unique and very unusual what he's getting into here. So let's go back a little bit and listen again. Just listen to how it comes into this. Okay, I'm gonna pause it there. Cool. Okay, now let's dig into it. So, what he's doing there is when he comes into it, he's hitting a to me it looks like a I imagine that as like the upper part of a D chord, and a lot of times he's creating tension like under the chord, playing these little dyad forms that lead up to it. He doesn't really go up to that, but he's he's doing this D, F sharp, and then he goes up chromatically and then back down, which is really wild. From there, he makes his way down into this kind of stuff where he's doing a lot of major sixes paired with minor thirds. So that's a big kind of theme that happens throughout the jam, and stuff like that. Now, what I like to do with those kind of things is, just look at that shape right there. You've got that nice kind of symmetrical triangle kind of thing. What do you call that? Equilateral triangle. And then think of, some stuff you can do with that. He does some stuff where he's like, and then hits the flat 7 to the 6. But think of how many motifs you can create right here. So if you're positioned here against your E chord, maybe think of your ring finger as playing off of the A string instead of the middle finger. When you go to the A chord, then hit the G natural, and that'll really jive well with the chord progression. So I've actually got a loop set up that I just strummed earlier. I'm going to play a little bit of that and kind of show you how it is in action, the kinds of things he's doing here. And then I'll show you the transcribed lick. So. And it's just really, really interesting. This thing really caught me off guard at first. It's so unusual for blues. At any rate, I want to share the lick that I'm going to show you guys here. Okay, so now this is really interesting. I circled a couple things, put some arrows in some spots where I wanted to draw your attention to some of the things that I think, to Scott's point, are setting this apart from a typical kind of blues. And why don't I play it really slowly, and then I'll talk you through it. Now, where this is happening in the chord progression is when the rest of the band is going to A, or A7. And so Trey is opening with this this line where he's sliding. It sounds like he's sliding from 7 to 5 like that. Now, I can't see him play this. I don't have a video of this. So the positions are my best guess. So again here. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Okay, that's just the first measure, and I want to pause there already because the part that I circled there, if anybody recognizes what that is, leave a comment. I know there's always a lag, but leave a comment if you recognize that. I'm going to play that again, starting from 7th fret. We come down here, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. That is so awesome. So like, let me go through a couple of these things. I'm gonna leave a moment for that first measure in case anybody wants to chime in on what that little arpeggio is there. But if you look to the second measure that I put up and all those arrows, the reason I wanted to draw your attention to that is because what Trey does here is, in that second measure, he creates this beautiful forward momentum, this forward motion, by really accenting those syncopated beats. And like, just think of it like this, like every other, hopefully you guys can see where I'm pointing this cursor. Let me see. I'm not sure if you can, but if you look at the, these brackets of 4 16th notes, every other one is going to be the weaker beat. Just kind of think of it like that to really simplify things. And the way he kind of delegates the notes here, he puts that syncopated beat on the B string, and it really stands out even more than usual. Because if you were just playing that on one string, it would be hard to tell unless you really accented it. And so putting it on a different string really highlights it. Okay, so I'm getting some comments I got to catch up on here. Okay, so first Keith asked me, are you picking this all out by ear, then transcribing it into tab? Yes, that's what I am doing. And Keith, I did a bit of transcribing last week on the Prague Ghost. I gave an example of what the process is. So if you go back to that video, it's still up under the live tab, and oh gosh, somebody just said stash riffs. Yeah, more on that in a second. So Keith, I give an example of me doing it live, and I kind of talk through the process of it. So I basically put it in the slowdowner. I listen to it, play it like a bunch. I just do trial and error, and then once I've kind of memorized the rhythm of it, that's the biggest thing, then I transcribe it. So good question on that. Okay, now the next thing, Dead Flower Blues said in regards to the question, I said, what is that first arpeggio, or the not the first arpeggio, but in the first measure, that circled one? And he said, diminished, or is this in this case A7 flat 9? Bingo, that's exactly how I would look at it. And a little lower, wait, where did that go? Okay, Super Master Brewer, love the screen names here. He said stash riffs, and that's exactly right. In fact, while we're kind of talking about this diminished thing, and let me just point that out in case anybody missed that. The circled arpeggio that I put there, he's going like this, like that, and that's actually just by happenstance. That is exactly how he starts that line in Stash that I think that Super Master Brewer is referencing when he goes, what does he do? What is it? Oh gosh. There it is. It took a second for it to come back to me. But right here, that's the one from Stash. And this one, what he's doing is he's going 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and right on, man. I'm happy to shine a light on the Stash stuff. So right over here, if you look at the arpeggio that happens right before the one I circled, he goes 5 4 5. Now that right there is just a dominant chord. It's an A7, and here's a little trick. Like, this is one of the fun little things I hope to share with you guys with how Trey is kind of spicing things up. It's this: if you have a dominant chord, whatever it is, well, and take this with a grain of salt and make sure it fits the context. But if you have a dominant chord and you play that arpeggio form like that, if you just raise the first note up a semitone, and actually I put the fifth back in, so let me do it like that. So here's an A7, and if I just raise that A to a B flat, and the reason I'm calling it a B flat is because I'm still, like, the A is still in play, but the 9 is the one that's flat. So I'm going to call it a B flat. Then we go to the C sharp, E, and then G natural. So let's change it up and say we had a D7. Okay, let's say you were jamming on a D7 and you wanted to add a little more spice, some of that diminished kind of flavor. What you would do is, like, imagine now with your middle finger, this is just one way to do it, just like I did a second ago. Imagine that kind of more typical arpeggio form and just simply raise that first note up. And you can create some really cool tension by alternating between those two. Plus, it's a really good dexterity exercise, as you guys can probably see. Oops, didn't mean to do that. But remember, when you do diminished patterns, you can move them in minor third intervals. And so anything that you do in one spot will be really movable, and that's part of the fun of it. So anyway, that's the first little thing that kind of starts to set things apart. I was hitting on the syncopation over here in the second measure with those arrows pointing up to the basically every other 16th note when he starts doing that. Let me play that measure from the 4th fretted G. So the first note is an 8th note, so we go 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Now the way the last note is a little muted. I'm kind of taking a guess at what I think. It was kind of plucky, but I think he's playing a G there. But that is a theme that comes up when he goes from the 5th to the minor 3rd. That's such a good little lick to play around with. But he ends it with that. So we've got 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 3 E and a 4 E. I think I kind of messed up that ending. But let me go back to measure 3. Now you'll see that I circled a big portion of that. That's that kind of bluesy turnaround variation I was talking about, where you can do this kind of, that sort of thing. So what Trey's doing here is he's starting it that same kind of way, but it's really cool. He's just leaving the E string open. And the other thing is that he's displacing the rhythm. So notice that it does not start on the first beat of the measure in that third measure. It starts on the E of 1. And that just means we're shifted over 1/16th, which just gives it, again, that forward momentum. So many of the things that I think make Trey really special, or my favorite players really special, is more to do with their rhythmic vocabulary and their sense of time within a measure and their mastery over time. And so that's, I know I probably talk about that a ton, and I hope I don't sound like a broken record, but the, syncopation, and, I talk about triplets a lot and rhythmic stuff. I think it really, there's a lot of gems in there with rhythm. So anyway, just even like an exercise to try is try playing that and counting it at the same time. I was struggling with it too. I'm going to try to count and play these last 2 measures and hopefully not embarrass myself. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and I already messed it up, so I'm going to do it again. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E. Pretty close, but it should be like that, and it just kind of pushes it forward, like I said. So that first little bit is really interesting. I'm going to play the clip again. There's a part that happens right after that that's really cool. I didn't write it out, but I'm going to explain it to you guys. So let me go back a couple seconds here and play it again. Okay, that right there, that was kind of cool. Let me talk you guys through what's happening there. So after this lick that we just, where we go, let me see here. Then he goes to the B, and he goes right here on the second fret of A. And he ends up all the way, basically an octave higher, and just kind of walks all the way up. So he's taking this basic form, and he literally just walks it up chromatically like that. And again, it's the kind of thing you don't really hear typically, at a blues jam or something. Trey's definitely putting in some other kind of stuff. Okay, let's keep it moving. I'm going to pick up from there and let it rip, and then we'll kind of stop and go. I'll get rid of this for now, and let's see. Again, there's a thing you don't hear all the time is, a theme like that, during a blues, but let's keep it moving. Okay, that was so good. So good. Okay, let me. There are a couple things to talk about right there. So, toward the end, that was more what I wanted to share in this more current spot I just stopped at. He does do this theme where he's like way up high, doing some stuff like that, which is really cool. But then that thing that I just stopped, that was, right before I stopped, he was, and I'll play it again in a second, but there was a trick I remember learning from a good friend of mine, Brian, who's one of the best guitarists I ever met, kind of a mentor to me in a lot of ways, and I learned a lot from him. But I remember playing a gig one time, and he showed me this little thing, so let me share it with you guys now. It's really cool. So if you have an E blues, this is the pattern he was showing me, and I think this is kind of what Trey's playing off of in a way. So if you take your index finger on G and go to the major third of the home chord, so the major third of E is a G sharp, so I'm going to put the index there, and then I build this really simple form where we go index, go a whole step up, a string down on the B string, and then go a fret up with the pinky finger. And if you think about it, that represents your major third, your flat 7 of E, and your major third again. So it just has this octave on top, but kind of a funky sound. You can use it in a bunch of different ways, but think of that as your one chord. Then when we go to the A7, you just shift that form down one, and it works there as well, because now the G has become the flat 7 of the A. This finger is representing the major third, and the pinky is, that octave of the flat 7 of A. So that's kind of a nice, easy move that has kind of a jarring sound to it. And then the cool thing is you usually go back up to your 1 chord, and then you go up to the 5 chord. And here's what we can do now. We can move that up like that. And now we've got the flat 7 of B. So that's an A natural. The major third is D sharp. And then that octave of the flat 7, like that. So just think of it like this simple kind of movement, like that. I'm going to play the clip again, and then I'm going to kind of estimate what I think he's doing more specifically here. So let me see. Let me see here. Okay, right there. Oh, there it is. Okay, so he's going. I'm going to have to show you guys in a second, just kind of working through it. Okay, cool. Let me pause it and come back. Okay, so what it sounds like is he's over the A going. And then over the E. And then over the B. Something like that. It's so good. And for that, I'm just kind of estimating it. But, think of that form. You've got your A7 kind of like this. Now, I know I was going like that, but you can grab different voicings of it. You've got that for your A7, that for your E7, and then for the B, and I didn't quite get what he did. Maybe something like that, like a B augmented. And then kind of cap it off with a little bluesy lick. One more time. Now here's the E. Now B7. Then blues to bring it on home. Right on. Okay, so let's pick up from there and keep listening. Okay, that's so good. Okay, now I got to go back and forth a little bit here, guys. Okay, so on that, he's doing some stuff like down here like we had before. So I'm just kind of riffing around, but what I'm really seeing here is if you think of your minor pentatonic, he's doing stuff around there. Now that's that move I was talking about earlier. He does the B, which is the fifth, to the minor third, like that. But there's something I want to point out that is going to come up actually in the lick that I'm about to share that I transcribed, is that almost every single time that Trey, and actually I would bet a lot of our favorite guitarists, if you really listen to them, when they play a minor third, they're never fully committing to a minor third. There's a microtonal element to it. I usually write it out if I tab it as a quarter bend, but it's not an exact thing. It's kind of in between. But listen to the difference if I play this with just a straight up G versus a little bend. Okay, so that's with no bend. It's honestly hard for me to do it without bending. Okay, now I'm going to do the bend. Do you guys hear that? And like that, it doesn't have to be that one lick, but like if you're doing stuff over here. You see that? Any of that kind of stuff, a lot of times it has that bend in it. Actually, this is a little bonus lick I'm going to share with you guys. Derek Trucks does the same thing. I love Derek Trucks. He's an alien. He's not even a human. But check this thing out he does, and it touches on exactly what I'm talking about here. I think the tune, they do a cover of Keep On Growing or something like that. And he does this like where he goes... Now, if you look at what I'm doing there, I'm hitting just an E, and that tune's also an E blues. But when he plays this next little bit, he purposely raises this string up quite a bit. And he keeps it bent up even for the second note. The reason that's is significant is this first note represents this kind of gray area between the minor third and the major third, like that. This note right here is the fourth, and when we bend it sharp, it allows us to hit on the blue note, the flat 5, and it gives it a little attitude and a little bit of grit, and it's just a great sound. So interestingly, the B stays really straight on. So that's my Derek Trucks rant for a second. Anyway, after Trey's done riffing around, he plays a lot of C naturals too. Like, you wouldn't expect that. And he'll mix in the major third of A and the minor third. So he really is like completely fearless in terms of note selection. It seems like he does not care. Then over the A chord, he does a lot of these little two-note things like we were looking at earlier. Then this lick where he comes to E, So this is kind of, it's kind of a mixture of some kind of Jerry type stuff. Although, I mean, a lot of people do chromatic stuff, but I just always, you know, think of Jerry stuff there. But this really cool rhyme up, he goes back to the third, skips to the fifth, does the anchor slide like that. So I thought that was a really interesting, kind of atypical thing for blues. And then the lick after that is one I transcribed and wanted to share with you guys. So we're at 506. Let me pick it up there. Okay, that's the part I was going to share. Let me, I don't think you guys heard that. So let me switch back. Here it is. It's so good. I'm going to play it again. I'm actually going to slow that down, and then I'll isolate the part I transcribed. Let me put it at like 70%, so it's not too slow, but slow enough where we can hear it a little better. Oh, it's so good. Okay. Let me go back. All right, here is that lick, or the end of that lick. Okay, so a couple things I wanted to point out here with my funny little red circles and arrows is if you look at the first measure, we've got 3 times where he hits that 13th fret of G, which is the major third of E. But then where I have the arrow pointing out that 15th fret of high E, that represents the minor third. And I guess the main point I wanted to get at here is that, you know, don't be afraid to hit both the major and the minor third, especially in a bluesy context. Some guys, like I know, like Jimmy Page will have times where he'll just go like he'll do stuff like that where he's going from the fourth to the third. And again, that minor third with a little bend, which is a really cool sound. So he's not quite doing that here, but his own version of it. So here is the lick. Let me play this and then talk you through it. And then there's some fun stuff in the next measure to get into as well. So. That's so good. Okay, so we start with the flat 7. Here we go. So even that right there is an interesting thing to throw in. A lot of times in a blues, you'll see, you know, stuff like that, but not always like that. So anyway, that's how it's starting. Now right there, that's really cool. That's another spot where, you know, you have this little gray area that lives in between the major 6 and the flat 7. You know, just playing around with that tension is really fun. So just like we had from the 4th to the flat 5, from the minor 3rd to the major 3rd, and the major 6 to the flat 7, but all of those are technically imperfect. Like if you were to, if that were a singer and people were auto-tuning that, it would suck all the life out of it. And that's why, you know, I agree with people that kind of rant against auto-tune. It really takes away that subtle stuff that lives in between each pitch. You know, we do have this 12-tone system, but remember that, and in fact, you know, let me go away from all this stuff and yeah, there we go. Okay, like, if anything else, this is maybe the biggest point with that stuff, with looking at the bends and stuff like that, is that we have this 12-tone system that we work with, but it is arbitrary in a way, you know, every single note, if you just take one semitone, every single one is broken into 100 pieces called a cent. And actually, I had a gig Saturday, and one of the guys that was subbing for the horn section in the band I was playing with, he was like, man, you should, he was talking to me saying I should analyze different guitarists and measure by the cents how much they bend that minor third. And I'm really thinking about doing that, because I bet you there's a range that is a typical range. So let's say that you bend, my guess, this is just a guess, is the kind of stuff I'm talking about is at least 20 cents sharp. So it's not even halfway. It's not quite a quarter. It's just, it's just right, I bet, in that range of a fifth to a quarter bend. But the main point is that even one semitone to a next, it's not a cut and dry thing, from one note to the next. In fact, this guy, he was a sax player. He was saying how jealous he is of us guitarists because we can hit on those gray areas. And here's one thing that I said to him in this conversation we were having is that, and I'm going to try to say this in a way that doesn't come off, pretentious or anything, but if I hear somebody play that isn't as experienced or, is maybe more of a beginner, one of the things I can hear that really tells me that is more than like their speed, more than the chords they know, more than the scale they know, more than any of that, it's their command of their intonation that really, really, kind of says a lot. And, like I'm sitting here nerding out over the little area between a minor third and a major third, a sixth and a flat seven, and all this kind of stuff. But I think it's important to me, and I hope I hope it opens a door for somebody to explore it, especially with minor thirds. Like try for a day to not play a minor third without a little bend. Just putting that little bend to it and see how you like it. Ultimately, you got to like how it sounds, though. Okay, now let's keep it moving. I'm going to go back to the track, and let's listen on. Okay, that right there. Let me pop back in here for a moment. I think that's something interesting to look at. That, again, is not a typical bluesy thing. So in that thing, I just stopped it. He's like... So he's going between the tonic and bending. Again, it's this gray area between the flat fifth and the perfect fifth. And it just creates a little sense of unease and tension. And when we can create that, it makes the resolution to our phrase even more powerful than it would have been. So just wanted to point that little thing out real quick. But let's keep it moving here. Here we go. Okay, let me stop there. That was so good. I'm actually going to try to go back and isolate this part I wanted to share with you guys. Real quick, that is something you're not going to hear at a local blues night at your local bar. You know, at that point, I think he's just like descending, just creating tension, just moving things down. Let's keep going though. Ah, so good. Okay, let me go back here. Okay, there's a couple things that I think are worth noting over there. When I can tell he's up on, hopefully that's not too loud or anything, but I wanted a little extra tube screamer power here. Like when he's up here in this kind of, think of it like your first position of the minor pentatonic. One thing that I think is really fun to play around with in a blues like this, because we're in an E blues, is doing stuff like your typical kind of minor pentatonic. You know, stuff like that. But then he's also hitting this major third. So like maybe do a run where you ascend with minor pentatonic. And then bend up. The form is like, if you think of like your E7, you know, that's kind of what I'm trying to touch on here. And then when he goes to the A7, it's kind of like that trick I was showing earlier, like that. You can kind of envision that shape. And then back to that major third of E. Okay, now let me pause because I can see some questions coming in. Let me go back. I'm a little behind. Yeah, it sounds like some chicken picking, that's for sure. That's Fishy Fish. Brian, love hearing this. I get stuck in making sure I'm playing in the key, so learning about the gray areas is super helpful. Okay, I gotta pop in because I love that comment so much, man. Listen, I realized I got to scoop my chair in. I'm so excited about that comment. My teacher, I studied piano for a long time, and you guys probably have heard me say this, but I'll say it again. The single best thing I ever did for my guitar playing is learn piano. I had played piano and kind of tinkered around and stuff and written songs, like just chords and stuff. But when I really went and studied piano properly, you know, with a really good player, it changed everything. But I can remember going to him, and one of the most burning questions I had for him, this is quite a while ago. I asked him. I said, Chris, his name's Chris too. You know, why is it when you play the blues that there's a major third and a minor third? Kind of a little bit what I'm touching on here. And he said something to the effect of like, that's just the sound for that style of music or something like that. And that is true, you know, but I still was kind of left a little unsatisfied. I was like, man, I just needed to understand why that was the case, because I couldn't really see a situation where that existed, you know, naturally in a key. Like, why is there a major third? Why is there a minor third coexisting? And I promise there's a point to this rant. Brian, with this comment saying he's trying to stay in the key. And I'm only highlighting this because this is how I was feeling. I wanted the answer to fit into a key. Like, where is it in the key where that happens? And then I had a realization that the whole problem stemmed from I was making a strong assumption that it should be in a key. And that was the first problem. So nowadays, I don't think of the blues as being in a key, but rather a combination of keys. And really, when I say that, the thing I'm more interested in is in the chords, that like the basket of chords you would get by combining keys. So let me give you a little example of what I'm talking about here. You know, and a lot of you guys have heard and I'm sure seen a bunch of stuff on Mixodorian, for example. So that kind of touches on what I'm talking about. So if we're drawing on a Mixodorian sound, which is kind of what a lot of this is, you could say, well, think about what the keys would be that you're drawing from. Well, if we're playing an E7, like an E blues, that E7 could be thought of as coming from A. Like the family of chords in A would have some stuff in common with that. And yet, it really doesn't have much to do with A major other than that. Like, we're not going to, like, target the A major scale, probably. I know I wouldn't be thinking that too much. However, we are getting some chords from the key of A, but that's not quite everything, because then we have this E Dorian sound as well. And then I would think of that as kind of coming from the key of D major. Again, but we don't highlight the D. We're just grabbing bits of it. And so, like, when you start to combine some of those things together, that's where you can have like this E7 and then the A7. The E7's really coming from the A. The E7 the A7 is really coming from the D, and then there's a whole bunch of other stuff. I don't want to go too down the rabbit hole, but I also apply the Barry Harris school of thought to all that, and so there's even more chords that you have at your fingertips. But the main thing I'm trying to hit on here is in line with this idea of bending to the gray area. Also try to find the gray areas between chords. Like, think of a key that you might be mostly drawing from, and then think of one that's similar or shares something in common with it, and then just play around with like breaking it apart and maybe borrowing something from another place. There's also this family of chords concept. I've talked about it a little bit. I can't remember if I talked about it on the Fish channel or my other channel, Elevated Improv, but check out, I'll just put it out there and plant the seed. Check out Barry Harris's stuff on family of chords, and it creates these families of keys, really is what it's about. And hopefully you find some gems in there. But let me share the end of that lick I just played. It has some really cool stuff in it. Oh, you know what though? Actually, I didn't finish reading the comments, so let me see this. John, what's up, man? I'm so glad you made it, man. I hope you're doing well. And then there's a question from Fishy Fish. Actually, let me go back. I'll come back to this tab in a second. He's saying, would you say that Trey is following the changes for each chord? I would say that, yeah, I would say yes. I would say that during the E, the parts with the E7, he seems to be more like E minor pentatonic based. There is some major pentatonic kind of stuff, but more like not even major pentatonic, but more like dominant chord stuff that has a major third in it. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if that didn't make sense. But mostly like minor pentatonic against the E. But then over the A7, he's definitely hitting on some stuff that is very compatible with that. So you definitely don't want to play E major pentatonic against the A7, because the A7 has a G in it, and G is the minor third of E. And I'm afraid that sounded like word salad. But basically you want to play to the A7 and what's in it. You can still keep like E Dorian or E minor pentatonic. That's the kind of stuff he's doing. Against the B, there's a part that happens where he's, well, multiple times, he's playing off of simple triad forms for the B. Like there's a part, I'll give you an example. I can't remember it like note for note, but like kind of the sketch of it is... He does a thing like that. In fact, it might be in the clip I'm about to play again in a second. So, you know, stuff like that. And then when he goes to the G, so again, the B form, if you think of like a C up here, and it's right up in this area where you might be doing major or minor pentatonic. See how you can just like kind of slide right down into that B. Here's your E minor pentatonic. And then slide down. Then it goes to a G, so then you could go, that's a G. And then there's an A after that. I love doing a bend, just kind of a Jerry thing. Go to the minor 6. And bend up. And in fact, if you're thinking of the A chord, I'm going again from that minor third to the major third. But Trey will hit the C natural sometimes, which is so cool. Anyway, yeah, he's playing to the changes, I would say, in for the most part. And John is agreeing. Very cool. Okay, so now let's get back to this lick. Let me play. Let me play it again because I kind of forgot even what was going on here. Okay, here we go. Okay, now right there, that's what I wanted to share. I'm going to go a little slower here. I'll go down to like 70%. This is the part I'm about to put on again is happening against the B7. Okay, so it's a quick little thing, but there's a lot packed into that. So let me get rid of that. And, okay, so remember that the B's happening right here. Now we're up on 12 of the B string. Then again, I circled that minor third bend on the 15th fret, like that. It's such a good little sound right there. So again. Okay, now that right there, okay, see that little, it's like a pre-bend. It's like an essential part of Trey's sound. Let me put a little more overdrive on and talk you through that. You hear that kind of like, it's just like such a Treyism there. And then it ends like that. That second measure is interesting because he has an E flat in there, right there. And then he goes from this D to, there's a B flat in there as well. So a lot of interesting color that's kind of outside. And I love that end lick. So that whole line again from 12. Love that lick. So part of the reason I also wanted to share that is because it gives you something kind of fun you can play with against the 5 chord. And, you know, just in case that first little part isn't as apparent what's going on there. Okay, here's the tonic or the root of that B chord. Then I think of that as just like a little major pentatonic kind of flavor right there. That's the major 6 of B, back to B. And then we do the 5th to the minor 3rd with that bend. So that's a real theme that's going on a lot. For the E, it was, and here, for the B. Then, like I said, this kind of outside stuff. And the cool thing is, even though there are a couple notes that feel a little outside, which I think is really exciting, then he kind of brings it home with this classic bluesy run at the end, which is so awesome. All right, let me get rid of that. And gosh, there's a lot more in this jam, but we're coming up on an hour, and I'm probably gonna end it pretty soon. But why don't I do this? I'm going to put a little more on. I'll kind of talk through a little bit just so that if you guys have any comments or questions, like if you need me to clear anything up or whatever, I'm going to hang in case you guys need anything from me. I'll show a couple more things and then we'll kind of wrap it up. There's going to be, I think the next one, I think I got a little out of order. I think I'm going to do You Enjoying Myself next week for the live stream. I think there's a 97 one that was requested. So We'll have that going on next week. And then I'm also going to do a You Enjoying Myself kind of inspired arpeggio exercise for the main channel. I'll put that up either Wednesday or Thursday. And I think that for a lot of people, that first minute of You Enjoying Myself is a huge challenge. For me, it is, I know. And a lot of times it's because the picking and the coordination with those arpeggios. And so I came up with a little exercise just really for my own practice because I'm always playing that. And I'll share that with you guys. But anyway, let me share a little more. And actually, before I do, I wanted to let you guys know as well. We're doing a monthly subscription for the course that I launched this year. We have all the fish stuff, any kind of like premium stuff from the Patreon or from the membership is on there. We have two options we're doing now. There's a $20 a month option with the course and all the fish stuff, and then $35, and that's with Q&A sessions. It would be like this, but you would be on the call with me and we would talk to each other. We do it every week, and it's a good time. So check that out. There's a link in the description. That's my shameless plug for the night. Let's listen to a little more. I'll let you guys chime in if you have anything. And hopefully, like so far, there's some stuff you can get out of this to apply to your own playing. So here we go. Let's get back to it. Okay, I gotta pause it. I forgot about this part. Okay, let me go back to the camera here. Ah, yeah, that's so good. Okay, so then over here, I didn't tab this part out, but I'll just kind of talk through what I think is going on there because it's very chaotic. And notice that when Trey goes into stuff like that, it creates this really disorienting kind of feeling. And then when they rip back into like kind of more of a typical sound, it's more satisfying. So at that part, he's doing this lick where it's like a... and then he goes into this huge bend leading into the A, and he's bending up from G. So that thing there, yes, John, it's insane. And the craziest thing, like, it's one thing for me to sit here and explain what's going on with Trey, like what he's doing, but like to come up with that kind of stuff on the spot and like, I don't know how he does it. He's an absolute wizard. So right here, like basically what he's doing, it seems like if you come down to this position, like imagine an E7, and again, there's our theme of hitting on the minor third, major third, fifth, and then it's this and it just creates like the repetitiveness of it is very exciting and also kind of like a little like tense, like it's just like so tense. And now that chromatic run up, hold on, I got to get this thing back in focus. There's this chromatic run up, and I'm just kind of estimating it, but Trey has this uncanny ability to do chromatic runs that end in just a way where it leads perfectly timing wise into a bend. I don't know how he does it, but this is another one where he's like, or actually I think it starts on the D sharp. And then up to that bend. So basically, yeah, you know what? Okay, so John's asking, is it the E flat that gives it the tension? Well, yeah, I think that if you look at it, John, that's a really good question. I think it's two things. I think it's that interplay between the minor third and the major third. I think instantly that creates tension. Then it's this non-committal thing where if you look at that, in a certain kind of way. If I were to put this on one string, I'm going to do that for a second. The other thing about the pattern of it is it's going like semitoned up, and then it's got this kind of really strange movement to it, but it's just that they're not on the same string. And then the bend at the end. So yeah, I think the E flat definitely adds to the tension, but I think that the minor third and the major third really help as well. So yeah, let me get this buzzy Tube Screamer Onslaught off here. Right on, guys. Really cool. I really enjoyed everybody kind of being engaged and hanging and talking with me. Like I said before, this is a real trip sitting down here by myself, teaching a lesson to, I'm kind of like, who am I teaching to? What do you guys want? What do you need? So it's cool when you guys are talking back. There's a comment here, dude, your ear is crazy. Thank you very much. But I'll say this, I do use the slowdowner. So like the thing about the ear training stuff, man, just, you know what? Force yourself to do it. Try to transcribe something that challenges you and pushes you a little bit. You'll pull your hair out a little bit. Like I know I did a little bit earlier today doing some of this stuff, but man, it's so worth it. It really pays off, because then when you go to play, you kind of have it's internalized. I think that's the most important thing, is that when you transcribe something, it just becomes part of you, and it comes out almost like handwriting. You take something in, and then it comes out in your own unique way. That's how your playing is. It's like your signature, and you don't want to see my handwriting because it is not good. Right on. So guys, thank you for hanging with me. I see some guys chiming in. Brian, Fishy Fish, John, thank you guys. Supermaster Brewer, I appreciate you guys too. We gotta keep this music alive and share it with as many people. We need the young guns to learn this stuff and keep it going. PPP, great lesson. Thank you so much. This is really fun. Possum is a cool one because it's bluesy, so it's accessible, but if you do it like Trey, it's very adventurous. And blues can be very adventurous anyway, even if it's more traditional. But listen to all the magical stuff going on here. So really appreciate you guys. Thank you to Rip for creating the track. I hope you guys go over there, subscribe to his channel. He is literally the best guy. Go over there, subscribe if you haven't. Check out his tracks. He's got a bunch of stuff. I mean, he has like daily uploads pretty much. Thank you to Scott for requesting this. Again, if you see this live or if you see it after and you have a jam, or it doesn't have to be a jam, if there's a topic or whatever, leave your comments here. I look at them and I just do what you guys want to do. So if there's something you want covered, put it up and I'll cover it. Something I want to do selfishly that I haven't done enough of on the channel, maybe hardly at all, is some of Trey's solo stuff, like Came in Review, Push Into the Day. I got a couple things I want to do, but I don't want to be selfish. So you guys put what you want to see, and I'll make it happen. So appreciate the time. Appreciate you guys hanging with me. Stay cool, and I'll see you guys next week, hopefully. We're going to do You, Enjoy, Myself. It's a 97, so keep your eyes peeled, and I'll see you then.